There was a time when she expected you to chase. Not maybe, not sometimes, always. She expected your attention like clockwork, your messages, your effort, your emotional investment. She got used to being the center of your world, and without even realizing it, she started measuring her value by how much you were willing to prove yours. And you did prove it. Over and over again, you showed up when it was inconvenient. You gave when it wasn't returned. You stayed when walking away would have been easier. But somewhere along the way, something shifted inside you. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity. You realize that chasing someone who enjoys being chased is a game you will always lose. So you stopped. No announcement, no drama, no final speech, just silence. And that silence, it shook everything. Because now she's confused. Not because she lost you, but because she lost control over how you respond to her. She was used to triggering your reactions, pulling your attention back, knowing that no matter what she did, you'd still orbit around her. But now, you're still unreachable. And that's what she doesn't understand. She keeps replaying moments in her head, wondering if you're talking to someone else, wondering if you've moved on, wondering why the same silence she once gave you now feels so heavy when it comes from you. Because silence hits differently when it's intentional. You didn't go quiet to manipulate her. You didn't go quiet to win her back. You went quiet because you finally chose yourself. You finally understood that your value doesn't increase by chasing someone who takes you for granted, and that's where your power comes from. Not from words, not from proving anything, but from your ability to walk away without needing validation, from your ability to detach without bitterness, from your discipline to stay silent even when part of you wants to reach out. That's strength. Now she's trying to decode you, trying to figure out what changed, trying to pull you back into the version of yourself she was comfortable with, the one who gave more than he received. But you're not that person anymore. You've outgrown the need to be chosen by someone who never chose you properly in the first place. And here's the truth. She's starting to feel, but can't fully admit. Your silence is forcing her to confront something she avoided for a long time. Your absence has value. Because when you were there, consistently, she didn't have to question anything. Now that you're gone, she has nothing but questions. And that's where the shift happens. Not in her, in you. Because real power isn't making someone regret losing you. Real power is reaching a place where you don't need them to regret it at all. You're no longer reacting. You're no longer chasing. You're no longer trying to be understood by someone who only understood your effort when it disappeared. And that silence you're holding on to, it's not emptiness. It's self-respect, it's growth. It's the version of you that finally realized that peace is more valuable than attention. Let her be confused. Let her wonder. Let her feel the absence she once ignored. Because you didn't lose your voice. You just stopped wasting it where it was never truly heard. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, avoidance, or even defeat. But when it is rooted in self-respect, it transforms into one of the most powerful forms of communication a person can possess. There is a massive difference between staying silent because you are afraid to speak and choosing silence because you refuse to lower your value. One comes from insecurity, the other from strength. And people can feel that difference, even if you never explain it. When silence is driven by ego, it carries tension. It feels like a game, like a test, like a way to provoke a reaction. It is loud in a negative way, filled with pride and the need to prove a point. Ego-based silence wants attention. It secretly hopes the other person notices, reacts, and chases. It is not truly silence. It is disguised noise, filled with emotional chaos underneath. And because of that, it rarely brings peace. It only extends the conflict even if no words are spoken, but silence grounded in self-respect is entirely different. It is calm, it is steady, it does not seek validation or reaction. It does not try to control the other person's behavior. Instead, it reflects a deep understanding of personal worth. It says, without saying anything, I know what I deserve, and I will not beg for it. That kind of silence is not about winning or losing. It is about alignment with your own standards. Choosing this kind of silence requires discipline. There will be moments when you feel the urge to respond, to explain yourself, to defend your position, or to chase closure. That urge is natural, but self-respect asks a higher question. Is this response honoring your value, or are you just reacting out of habit and emotion? When you begin to pause and choose silence in moments where you once would have overextended yourself, you start reclaiming control over your energy. The silence also sets a boundary without needing to announce one. It shows that you are no longer available for situations where your effort is not matched, your presence is not appreciated, or your voice is not heard. You are not punishing anyone. You are simply removing yourself from what no longer aligns with your standards. And that shift is powerful because it does not rely on the other person changing. It relies on you deciding. Over time, this kind of silence builds inner strength. You become less reactive, less dependent on external validation, and more grounded in who you are. You stop explaining your worth to people who benefit from misunderstanding it. You stop chasing conversations that drain you. You begin to value peace over temporary attention. And the most powerful part is this. You don't feel the need to break your silence just to be seen, because when silence comes from self-respect, you already see yourself clearly. People rarely recognize the value of something that is constantly available to them. When your presence is consistent, predictable, and always within reach, it becomes comfortable. And comfort, when unchecked, often turns into unconscious neglect, not because people are intentionally cruel, but because human nature adapts quickly to what feels permanent. What is always there stops feeling special. What is always given stops feeling earned. When you show up every time, reply instantly, give your attention freely, and prioritize someone without hesitation, you believe you are proving your worth. You think consistency will be appreciated, loyalty will be respected, and effort will be reciprocated. But instead, something subtle begins to happen. Your presence becomes expected rather than valued. It turns into a baseline, not a bonus. That's where the imbalance begins, because value is often tied to perception, and perception changes when something is no longer at risk of being lost. When someone believes you will always be there regardless of how they treat you, they stop measuring your importance. They stop questioning your absence because, in their mind, absence is not even a possibility. But the moment you step back, everything shifts. Your absence creates space, and in that space, awareness begins to grow. The messages that once came easily are no longer there. The attention they took for granted becomes noticeable by its absence. The emotional support, the consistency, the energy you provided, all of it becomes visible only when it's no longer present. Absence forces reflection. It interrupts routine. It breaks patterns. It removes the comfort that allowed someone to overlook your value in the first place. And suddenly, what was once ignored becomes significant, not because you changed your worth, but because your absence changed their perspective. This is why people often realize too late what someone meant to them. It is not that your value increased overnight. Your value was always there. It's just that it was hidden beneath familiarity. When something is always present, it blends into the background. But when it disappears, it demands attention. There is a quiet power in stepping away, not to create pain, but teeth. Oh, restore balance. Not to punish, but to protect your own sense of worth. Because staying where you are not appreciated teaches others that your presence is optional, that your effort requires no acknowledgement. Absence, when chosen with clarity, redefines that narrative. It communicates that your presence is not guaranteed, that your time, energy, and attention are valuable resources, not unlimited supplies. It reminds others that losing access to you is a real consequence, not an empty threat. But more importantly, It reminds you. It reinforces that you are not meant to be constantly available to those who do not recognize your value. It shifts your focus from being seen by others to seeing yourself clearly. Because once you understand your own worth, you stop trying to prove it through constant presence. And that is when everything changes. Chasing someone who enjoys being chased places you in a position where the outcome is already decided and it is not in your favor. The dynamic itself is built on imbalance. One person is investing, pursuing, and proving, while the other is receiving, observing, and deciding. That imbalance might feel exciting at first, even motivating, because it gives you a sense of purpose. You believe that if you just try harder, give more, or stay consistent enough, you will eventually earn the attention and appreciation you're seeking. But that belief is where the trap begins. Because when someone enjoys being chased, the pursuit itself becomes the reward for them. Not the connection, not the depth, not the mutual growth, but the act of being desired. Your effort feeds their sense of importance. Your persistence reassures them of their value. And as long as you continue chasing, they have no reason to change the dynamic. In fact, the more you chase, the more the pattern is reinforced. You begin to measure your progress by small sig, NS, a reply, a moment of attention, a temporary shift in behavior. You interpret these moments as breakthroughs, as proof that your effort is working. But in reality, they are just enough to keep you engaged, just enough to prevent you from walking away. The cycle continues, and without realizing it, you become emotionally invested in a situation that is designed to keep you in motion, not to bring you closer. This is why it is a losing game. Not because you are not enough, but because the rules are not built for you to win. The more you give, the more is expected. The more available you are, the less you are valued. Your effort, instead of elevating your position, slowly diminishes your perceived worth in their eyes. Not intentionally, but naturally, because what is easily accessible is rarely treated as rare, and over time, something even more damaging happens. You begin to lose your sense of balance. Your focus shifts from your own growth and well-being to their responses and reactions. Your mood starts depending on how they engage with you. Your self-worth becomes tied to how much attention you can earn. You are no longer moving forward in your own life. You are orbiting around someone else's validation. Walking away from this dynamic requires a shift in awareness. You have to recognize that no amount of chasing will create genuine desire. Real connection is not built through pursuit alone. It requires mutual interest, equal effort, and consistent respect. Without those elements, all you are doing is investing energy into something that cannot sustain you. When you stop chasing, you break the cycle. You remove the fuel that keeps the dynamic alive. And in that moment, you regain control over your time, your energy, and your emotions. You stop playing a role that was never designed to benefit you. That is when you begin to understand that your value was never planned to be proven through pursuit. It was meant to be recognized